What if I told you that Russia, the world's largest country, a nuclear power, a cultural giant, has no idea who it truly is? That's not just a philosophical question. It's a very real identity crisis at the heart of Russia's politics, society, and culture. Is Russia Western? Not quite. It shares almost none of the same values or institutions. Is it Eastern? Definitely not. Is it a civilization all its own? That sounds nice, but doesn't hold up under scrutiny either. In fact, everything we think we know about Russia's origins, its architecture, religion, literature, even its power structures, was borrowed. The Kremlin was built by Italians. Ballet came from France. Its nuclear bomb was reverse engineered from America. The military system? German. Even its iconic literature echoes 19th century England. So, where do the true roots of Russian civilization lie? It's a question that few people, Russians included, can answer. But I do. My name is Elvira Bary. I was born in the USSR. I write novels about Russia's forgotten history, and today I'm going to take you on a journey into the origins of Russian identity, a story buried so deep that it's been erased from national memory. It's not just about history. It's about understanding why modern Russia behaves the way it does. Its obsession with power, its unpredictable politics, and its constant clash with the West. And the key to unlocking all of this is a long-lost empire most people barely remember: Byzantium. Just as it's important for an individual to know their origins, it's crucial for a nation to understand where its ideological and cultural roots lie. This is tied to a fundamental concept called the origin myth or founding myth. We needed to explain and justify our current state of affairs. It's not necessarily based on true events, but it must be lofty and sacred, because it serves as the core on which everything else is built. For the West, everything is clear. First came the ancient Greeks with their philosophy, then the Romans with their law, followed by Christian thinkers, the Renaissance and Reformation figures, the scientific revolution, and the Enlightenment, all the way to the present day. Western European countries, despite constantly fighting among themselves, still formed a unified trade, scientific, and cultural space. But Russia never belonged to this space because it came from a different root, Byzantium, a once thriving Christian civilization that existed in what is now Turkey and the Balkans. For 1,000 years, Byzantium was the most powerful and wealthiest European state. Imagine the time spent from the Norman conquest of England in 1066 to today. That's how long Byzantium dominated Europe. Like Western civilization, Byzantium also came from ancient Rome, but then it charted its own path, affecting everything from religion and philosophy to government, technology, culture, and the arts. For many centuries, Byzantium was Russia's primary trading partner. Cultural and spiritual exchange did not flow from the west to the east, but from the south to the north. It was from Byzantium that Russia received Christianity, painting, literature, architecture, science, fashion, and systems of governance. Byzantium did not speak Latin, but medieval Greek, the language in which Russian intellectuals communicated. In a way, the cultural connection between Russia and Byzantium was similar to that between modern America and the United Kingdom. In 1453, the Ottomans conquered Constantinople, the capital of Byzantium, and created an entirely new state on its ruins, with a different language, religion, culture, and population. For Western Europe, this had a significant impact. The Ottomans disrupted traditional trade routes in the Eastern Mediterranean and North Africa, which had been the source of silk and spices, which were the most prestigious commodities of the time. Moreover, Precious metals, pearls, and gemstones, which had come from Africa and the East, were now out of reach for European elites. Imagine a king needing a crown, but there's no material to make it. Problem arose on all fronts. No ivory for the decorative objects that once served as plastic, no fine Arabian horses, and no perfumes. Perfumes were especially important because nobles wore elaborate clothes that weren't so easy to wash, and they sweated, just like we do. This led Western Europe to search for alternative routes to India and China, sparkling the age of great geographical discoveries. For the Russians, the fall of Byzantium had an even more devastating effect. Not only were traditional trade routes destroyed, leading to serious economic problems, but the main religious center and many sacred objects were lost. If any Catholics are listening, imagine if Rome were captured by Muslims and St. Peter's Basilica turned into a mosque. For centuries, Byzantium had provided Russia's principal teachers, translators, icon painters, architects, craftsmen, trade representatives, and noble brides. It was a familiar and established source of human capital. After the fall of Constantinople, many Byzantine scholars, craftsmen, and noble families moved to Italian city-states, where they had strong trade connections. They brought classical Greek manuscripts and knowledge with them, playing a major role in sparkling the Renaissance, especially in Florence. Another wave of refugees, mostly priests, diplomats, and aristocrats, made their way to Russia, the strongest Orthodox state of the time. The Moscow Tsars took up the fallen mantle of orthodoxy, proclaiming themselves as the Third Rome. According to this ideology, the first Rome was the ancient city, the second was Constantinople, and the third was Moscow. This reinforced Russia's Orthodox identity and imperial ideology. The marriage of Ivan III, Grand Prince of Moscow, to the niece of the last Byzantine emperor symbolized this inheritance. However, the fall of Byzantium occurred before widespread literacy, and as a result, memory of it quickly began to fade. Reconnecting with Byzantine knowledge was impossible because the Turks, who had conquered the territories, were deeply hostile to Europeans, both Western and Eastern. European aristocrats, scholars, and writers didn't visit the Ottoman Empire, didn't admire Byzantine ruins, or examine the surviving scrolls. They traveled to Rome during the Grand Tour, a traditional journey through Europe taken by young aristocrats from the 17th to early 19th centuries as a form of cultural education. They commissioned countless paintings and replicas of ancient statues, helping to shape our vivid impressions of ancient Rome and its art. But in the Ottoman Empire, this was not the case. So we have very vague ideas of what Byzantium looked like, even though it was much closer to us in time. A whole millennium of history was erased from Russian thought. As a result, Russia became trapped between two worlds, East and West. Many now claim that Russia is the heir of the Golden Horde, but that is not true. The Mongol conquest, of course, left scars on Russia's body, and some administrative practices were used for many centuries, such as the postal system and tribute collection. But the Mongol experience, culturally, aesthetically, and spiritually, did not stick. Russia was an agricultural land with Orthodox traditions, while the Mongols were nomads with shamanistic beliefs, two completely different worlds. The traces of Byzantium are still clearly felt in Russian politics and culture, but all of this is unconscious. Religion, church rituals, and nearly all early theological texts, that's Byzantium. The distinctive architecture of Russian churches, that's Byzantium. Early Russian laws like the Russkaya Pravda, Russian truth, that's Byzantium. The Byzantine idea of symphony, harmony between church and state, shaped the Russian views on the relationship between the Tsar and the church. Political despotism and the drive to build an empire, that's Byzantium. Ceremonial and court culture, that's Byzantium. Russian coronations, court rituals, and imperial symbolism borrowed heavily from Byzantine practices, including robes, crowns, and titles like Tsar, which derives from Caesar. By the way, do you know why Russian officials, including Putin, love opulence and golden embellishments so much? Why do their private residences look like temples? That's also a Byzantine tradition. However, Byzantine history is rarely taught in Russian schools. There is no academic school, no textbooks, no films or novels creating historical memory. This historical orphanhood has turned Russia into a loose cannon. That's why it constantly swings from one extreme to another, trying to find common ground with the West, then breaking ties and attempting to forge its own narrative. I believe that extreme sensitivity, the inability to self criticize, and constant self flagellation among Russians are linked to a feeling of historical orphanhood. It's like a person who lost their parents at an early age and was raised in the foster system. They wander, searching for themselves, trying to prove to the world that they are significant, and often resorting to violence. The founding myth is crucial for a nation's self-awareness. It's one thing to clearly know where your historical and cultural roots are, who your founding fathers were, and what ideas they followed. It's another thing to lose all of that and be unable to restore it.